Welcome to Situation Today with Gulf Business. This is where you come for news beyond the headlines. We cover real estate, finance, technology, sustainability, healthcare, and so much more. In our podcast, we talk about things that matter with people who are driving this change. Today we have with us Andrea Prazakova, a banking veteran and a global executive with Mastercard. Now I've called her a veteran because she's worked across multiple markets: Europe, Africa, Asia, and now she's in the Middle East. On that note, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us in our studios. Could you tell our listeners something about yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I have to say before I start to talk about myself that, congratulations that you pronounce my surname well, right? That doesn't happen often. And secondly, I had to laugh that you called me a veteran. When we think about veterans, we think about old people, probably even men. I can't remember anybody ever calling me like that. But so maybe I am a veteran. So my background is obviously banking, as you said. I lived in multiple different countries. What's really interesting, I think, about me is that I am a constant learner, right? I think the spread what I'm doing across innovation, sustainability, and gaming. I am a massive AI, Web3, and blockchain enthusiast. I am a founder of a podcast which is called Space Uncensored, which is dedicated to women in space. I have 2 kids. I live here for 8.5 years in Dubai, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about what Mastercard is doing in sustainability.
That's a great introduction, and thank you for making it so personal for our listeners. Andrea, you lead innovation, ESG, and gaming at Mastercard EEMEA. So for our listeners, could you tell us what are the building blocks of a sustainable lifestyle, and what are companies doing to help sustainability measures?
That's a really interesting question, because many consumers or even companies, they always, when somebody talks about sustainability, they think, it's like 10,000 feet, right? Because it's these sustainability goals and governments meeting. And I think there is so much we can do as consumers, right? I mean, if you look at yourself, myself, or anybody here in the studio, where do you start? Buying secondary clothes, recycling at home, making sure you buy locally produced products. But I think that doesn't finish there, right? Because even if you recycle at home and you are very good and buy these bins at IKEA and, have 6 of them at home, if you then exit your house and there are only 2 bins to put it in, then your impact is not so massive, right? So I think that's a really ecosystem which needs to work together. So it starts with us to making small changes into our own lifestyles. Secondly is the municipalities and the governments, which needs to create the infrastructure to be actually able to fully, if we stay in the topic of recycling, for example, recycle. And then obviously companies which will be very focused on bringing the right products for us. And then talking about banks, right? So banks need to start to reward customers who are actually doing the right sustainable choices, who are maybe, instead of buying primary products, buying secondary products, who travel sustainably or buying for sustainable farms, for example. So it's the lifestyle. It's very personal because it's consumer oriented, but I'm a true believer that it takes an army to make this happen, right? And one needs to eat the elephant bite by bite, and every single part of that army need to play its role.
You've spoken about sustainability as a personal endeavor, so I'd like to ask you, have you made any changes in your personal lifestyle, brought in any new habits that have changed things at home for you?
The making sustainable choices today, it's still a luxury effort, right? Because sustainable products or sustainable travel, it's still on the higher end. So many people would maybe listen to it and look at me and say, oh, of course she can do it because she has a great job. And I think this is something we need to acknowledge, is that sustainability needs to start to be affordable, because currently it's not. Right? So for me personally, when you ask me the question, definitely, I love to sell and buy on secondary market. We are very spoiled here in Dubai. We obviously have places like Luxury Closet, Riot. Many big brands today, big groups already enable you to buy and sell pre-owned products, which I think is really great. For children, obviously, I have a colleague, and every clothes we buy, we recycle to her, and she recycles to somebody else. We're doing the same with toys. In terms of food, obviously we prefer to buy organic. I mean, I can't wait when I walk into a store and I would be actually able to see carbon emissions on the products and also where the products were made. Or the outfit I wear today, it's made by a company which is called Another Tomorrow, which is a company which is fully sustainable. So you can actually see where the materials came from, who are the farmers, what was the carbon emissions, right? So there is a lot which one can do. But again, it's because I can afford it, right? This is a conflict, I think, that many consumers have, right? We want to make right choices, right? But there is a border that some of these choices are just too expensive, right? So I think that that's the role of governments, the role of companies to see how can they bridge this gap. Because as you know, I can talk big, right? But no, because nobody sits, as I said, on my shoulder when I'm making these choices, right? So it's between me and my conscience. But it's very important that we eliminate this kind of conflict which consumers have, and they just really can do the right decisions, and it will have not significant impact on their wallet.
Andrea, on a day-to-day basis, you're making multiple decisions as a mother, as a person who's handling the family finances, and also as a working professional at Mastercard. Could you tell us something about how you make a decision regarding sustainability as an executive versus a sustainability decision at home as a mother and as a manager?
That's a interesting. I never thought about it from that perspective because I think as a woman, it all blurs together, right? There is nothing like a balance. I don't think that exists. There's just juggling, right, across the different lives because you're not only a mother, you are a taxi driver, you are a chef, you are a manager, you are a mentor. It's like a whole list of roles which you have, and I think that there are no tricks. I think everybody needs to just find their own way how to do it. I think it took me really a long time and many years, and I'm still not there, right, to always decide what the right priorities are. I have absolute massive FOMO that I'm not spending enough time with my kids and with my husband, I think. And then on the other side, I really love my job. So I think it's really challenging. And I think that probably many women sympathize and empathize with what I'm saying, right? I don't have a right answer for it. I think it's a journey, right? And every time you maybe change a job and you do something else, you need to find a new balance. But I think, sustainability is not only about trees and water and financial inclusion. Sustainability is also personal about your physical and mental health, right? Because if we have a society which is healthy physically and mentally, they have a positive impact then on the planet as well. And I think these are some of these things which me now at the age of 50, starting to think from a family and even office perspective much more than I used to do before. So maybe that's maybe a change on my journey personally. But everybody is different and everybody needs to fall down, learn, get up, and make the decisions of where they want to go.
So you've made two very interesting points. One, all roads lead to the bank, and it's all about the money, honey, at the end of the day, right? So because Mastercard is in the fintech space and is basically synonymous with finance on the global scale, what is it doing for sustainability? What is its approach towards sustainability?
We have three pillars which we're really focusing on, which is people, planet, and prosperity. Right? And behind each of these pillars, there are obviously activities which we're doing, right? So around people, we're looking about diversity. So for example, we're really looking at involving about 25 million SME female businesses. When we look about the planet, we committed to plant 100 million trees to help, obviously, with reforestation efforts. And on the prosperity, we committed to include 1 billion people into the, financial world. So these are, very key components. And we don't stop there. I think the biggest point is that each of us individually is committed from a bonus perspective. So our bonuses of everybody in Mastercard is connected to how we perform on the sustainability targets. And that's a big message which we're sending outside and also in the organization.
Wow, that is huge. Guys, are you listening to this? Mastercard is actually putting its money where its mouth is.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so and it's a great example for other companies out there who are talking about sustainability, but they can take Mastercard's example to actually push the envelope further, right?
I definitely think so. I think that many companies I think everybody is also a little bit worried, right, and scared, because you have obviously so many issues with greenwashing and other activities. So everybody is very careful what statements they make, right? Where do they invest? That if they do something, it's really the right thing to do. I give you an example. Our Priceless Planet Coalition, it's massive commitment, but we are very obviously we were partner with Conservation International, and we to make sure that where the trees are planted is the right place, that the trees are the right trees which are planted, that it also impacts positively the community, so creates new jobs, fights poverty, and that somebody doesn't come and just pull the trees out and no trees are granted. So that's a really big responsibility. And I think if it's banks or Mastercard or any other company, any commitment, everybody really wants to be sure that what they're doing will have the right impact, that, their brand can't get damaged by somebody coming and say, guys, what you're doing actually doesn't do what you said. So I think that's where, it's the balance which needs to be found by the companies.
So you mentioned a lot about what Mastercard is doing, and it sounds right. But Mastercard is a huge company. It's across 210 countries plus regions, right? It basically covers probably every spot on earth. So how do you actually engage your value chain in your net zero strategy on a macro level?
I don't think we are in Antarctica, right? This is probably one of the places we are not. But who knows, with today's innovations. As you said, we are obviously globally. So we have our net zero targets. Originally, our net zero target was by 2050. And 2 years ago in 2021, we moved it to 2040, which we all super proud of, right? But obviously 2040, it's quite a long time ago ahead. So we have on the other side also short-term targets, right? So for example, if I can mention two, our target by 2025, which is just in 2 years, we are committed to reduce our emission for scope 1 and scope 2 by 38% and scope 3 by 20, right? And these are like short-term targets. And on the company level, we own about 180 properties globally, right? So all the properties, for example, in United States are equipped with solar panels. All the properties we own globally are LED certified, right? There are no plastic bottles in the offices. So there are small steps and big steps which we doing as a company towards the net zero target. And obviously we have very clear strategy which we are executing on.
Okay, so you're talking about what you're doing from the corporate level. Mastercard really prides itself in digital accessibility, right? It's pushing the envelope in ensuring that people across the world have access to finance. So how does this go in hand with sustainability? How do you make people use technology, but also ensure that this footprint is green?
That's a interesting viewpoint. So maybe I talk about two things, right? One is, I will talk about one of my favorite products which we have, which is called Farm Pass, right? And we are rolling it in Africa, India. And if you think one of the big challenges farmers usually have is that they would not get the right prices, right? There would be too many intermediaries, and this guy takes this, and I buy the tomatoes from you, and I sell it to somebody else, and I only pay you, 50 cents. I sell it for 3. So we have this product which we have is digitizing that journey, right, and ensuring that you as a farmer are paid the fair price. It also tells you which areas you should sell your products to get the better price, right? So this is a showcase of the financial inclusion having a significant impact on somebody and their family income, right? Now, on a more sustainable or environmental aspect, another product which we have for you, for example, is so-called carbon calculator, right? I mean, you still probably remember, many years ago, everybody started to be obsessed to look at all the labels to say how many calories, how many kilojoules, what is the, vitamin content, all of it, right? So, but currently when you go to any of the supermarkets, you actually don't know what is the carbon emission of the product you're buying. And maybe you can guess, right? You maybe can think if it's come from United States and if it comes from Oman. I'm sure that the product probably traveled far, but it's estimated guesses, right? So what we are able to give you is that with every single of your purchases, you can see what is the carbon emissions which you're actually creating, and then you can make some choices. You can decide to plant trees, for example, to compensate for some of your actions which you made, and also maybe start to make a little bit smarter choices because you're more educated about what the carbon impact is. And ultimately, I think that I was saying it that you want to go that in the future, the same way you're looking at calories, you will see the carbon emissions, right? You will see, was it sustainable farm, where the cotton came from, how long did it travel, and not only that, right? Because many people mix the sustainability with only the carbon credits, right? Or not carbon credit, carbon footprint. But it's the entire industrial symbiosis, right? It's what was the raw material reuse. And if your pants or my pants, we stop wearing them and they go into a secondary market, where do they end up then? Will they end up on a landfill in Africa? Or will the material be done in such a manner that it can be reused again into creating something new? Maybe curtains or blankets, I don't know. So I think that's where the technology is heading, but ultimately we're focusing on both. How do we include you financially, right? And make your life better and make your family more prosper? And also, how do we educate you as a consumer to make maybe better choices in your shopping or in your travel?
Okay. Can I play the devil's advocate here?
Of course, go.
So what Mastercard is doing hence requires a lot of transparency. So, are you not getting pushback because you're asking a lot of people engaged in the supply chain to be open about things that probably count towards their bottom line, right? So, increased transparency will probably mean a lot of changes. So, how will you impact that, or are you facing pushback in any form?
Right. I think what's beautiful about sustainability, similar like healthcare, that companies work together. Right. So, of course, there is it's much bigger impact on the bottom line of production companies, right? And then that's where the industrial symbiosis comes in. There is a amazing company here in UAE which is called The Surplus, and its founder Rana, they focus him exactly on that to see when your raw material what is left, who can take it and produce something else. So how can you start to resell the leftovers, for example? How do you monitor your product so that it can be back recycled, right? I think it's just a question of time until every company will need to comply with certain rules and regulation. Definitely, interesting enough, there are often questions from the banks say, oh, I'm not sure I want to show this to my consumers because maybe they will stop shopping at the merchants, which are my corporate clients. And I have to say, this is a really interesting perspective, right? But we didn't see that shift. I think, knowing about your carbon emissions doesn't really shift dramatically your behavior, right? This is 1.0. It educates you to be aware, right? And you can start to shift slowly, but you will not from one day to another say, oh, I won't shop here anymore. I will, just shop here, because it has impact on your financial status as well. So I think it's a really everybody working together, right? Legislation, corporates, consumers, and starting with education, giving you the opportunity to compensate, not necessarily change your behavior, and then give you tips and tricks how to change.
I would just like to move away and talk about technology, because Mastercard again has done so much in technology, and we haven't had the chance to go there. Obviously, we are living through a time of revolution of another kind with AI coming in, and Web3, blockchain, all of it. You have Mastercard, which is a financial player. It also straddles technology and is also doing sustainability. So how do these three connect?
I mean, I think that we are living probably in the most interesting, time we ever could. So I'm not sure if you saw, just obviously this week we announced a big partnership with the Ministry of AI, and Mastercard is building an AI center here, which will be partnering with the UAE ministry to obviously look especially on cybersecurity solutions, right? So we're already using a lot of AI in our own environment. How does it actually link to sustainability? Right? I think all of these pieces which you mentioned, obviously blockchain, Web3, AI, couple of examples, right? With new technology, you can go paperless, right? You don't need that. Number two, blockchain, I think you spoke about, the issues with making sure that it's real, it's not fake, right? And especially in today's age with synthetic data where you easily can be mistaken, right? That, you can have even somebody's voice and somebody's face. So blockchain is and tokens is a great solution to ensure that the provenance and of the product or of the service, right? So it's another way. Then you can start to offer different experiences. I think that AI is also super powerful in the finance, right? We spoke that today consumers are not supported if they make sustainable choices, right? So let's maybe fast forward a little bit and think that obviously you buy sustainable, you put solar panels on your house, you get, you recycle your water at home, you travel sustainably, you drive a electric vehicle. So all of these information, utilizing obviously the data and analytics and AI, the banks can start to make much smarter decisions, right, and offer you much smarter products. Maybe if you do sustainable choices, your mortgage price could be lower, or maybe they extend your mortgage by a couple of years because you live healthy. AI can read your health data, right, because it's also about health, right? So health data, and say, oh, based on the data of Andrea, and her grandmother is just turning 100, she probably will very long. So, and she, from her shopping list, she shops healthy and she goes to gym and she does this. So you could start to utilize all of these things which you already know about the customer, using the new technology to actually make much better choices and be more relevant to Andrea or anybody else, right? And I think I'm really excited about that, right? And then if you think about sustainability, and you think about the satellite data which you use, right? I think Switzerland is a great example where they utilizing and mapping houses and see how much energy is coming out of the houses, right? So if you have a house here and you have a house next door, so maybe you are more sustainable than me, I could use satellite imagery to map how much of energy is leaving your house, how isolated your windows are. If you're using, traditional pumps to cool your water, use electricity. And again, that can have multiple impact on maybe your taxes or your interest rate or the air miles you get or whatever, right? So I think there is a massive opportunity. I think my head is just spinning about thinking what is there and what's possible when you combine all of these different elements.
Wow, Andrea, you've donned so many hats for us today. You've given us a glimpse into your life as a mother, as a person who's passionate about sustainability, and as a global executive with Mastercard. So thank you so much for joining us at Gulf Business Situation today.
Thank you so much. And I hope that, once the first banks will launch carbon calculator here in UAE, you will run into the doors and, choose it to understand what your carbon emissions are. But jokes aside, really great honor. Thank you for having me and for allowing me to share my experience and the great work which Mastercard is doing globally and in the EEMEA region.
For more such interesting conversations, follow our podcast series, Situation Today with Gulf Business. You can also check out other news updates at gulfbusiness.com and follow us on our social media platforms.